Okay, so I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask for an approval of the agenda with a substantial 4 things specifically that have come this afternoon on the addendum, additional comments and staff reports, which is more comments on the official plan. We need to talk about scheduling of a pool presentation meeting, which is under business, number 10. Bylaws, we have 2 changes. One is the removal of the LPAT tribunal decision, and then 12 is an addition from Councillor Moffat to the addendum. So could I have approval to the agenda plus the addendum as presented? Could I have a motion? Right.
No.
I don't need a motion? Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Rod. So before we begin the official part of the meeting, I'd like to pay respect to the First Nations, past and present, and acknowledge the important role First Nations people continue to play within our community. I think you're going to see the impact of our new CAO as the council meeting unfolds. And so we are learning a little bit as we go, but Jason has been hard at work and will report several things throughout the meeting. And with that, I'm going to call for disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof.
Yes.
Okay.
I wish to declare that I may have a conflict of interest, pecuniary interest related to the following matter. Council meeting agenda item 5B, accounts B, payment to Wayne Hall Construction as a party as my employer. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to, as I have been in the last few meetings, call for a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of Council held November 16th, 2020 as circulated. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move, Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion, accounts A. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve the accounts in the amount of $541,738.48.
So moved.
Thank you. And could I have a seconder from Councillor Collins?
I'll second that motion, Mayor.
All in favor of accounts A being approved? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve the accounts in the amount of $8,091 even. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Moffat.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor? Thank you. Councillor Fellner, that is complete. You're going to let the delegations in?
Yes, and there's one gentleman, Robert Wood, that I believe might be with Georgian Bay Biosphere, but just verify.
Okay, we're gonna move.
Sorry, Mayor. Rob Wood is with the museum.
Oh, museum, okay.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
We're gonna move to the delegations, of which we have 4. And I'd like to remind the delegates that they have 10 minutes to present. They're not all in, just sorry.
One more. Okay, I think they're...
Okay, so I'm going to remind the delegates that we love to have them come to council, and we have a very full agenda, so we will be holding you to the 10 minutes. If questions proceed past that time, I would ask you to share your coordinates with the people council so they can follow up following the meeting offline. So I'm going to welcome Scott, our Member of Parliament in Ottawa, Scott Aitchison. Thank you for joining us today, and welcome. So you have the floor for 10 minutes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I, for the first time in my life, I'll be very, very brief. I'm used to being a mayor where I talk as long as I want. I just, no dig at you, Your Worship. I apologize.
It's okay.
I just wanted to. I've basically tried to reach out to all municipalities in the riding, obviously, and decided that it would be good to check in with you at least on an annual basis. And so, I'm thrilled that in fact Seguin Township is the second of municipal councils that I'm visiting. Just wanted to briefly let you know about a couple of the projects I'm working hard on in Ottawa. And I think that the first one that I've spent a lot of time on is probably near and dear to your hearts. And that's, of course, broadband rural internet access. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you, Your Worship, for the leadership that you and your council have taken on this issue, and coordinating the efforts of all the other local municipalities as well. The government has announced a significant amount of money. They've done that a lot, and then don't always spend it. And I'm hell-bent that we're going to make sure they spend some of it right here in Perry Sound, Muskoka. So I appreciate your efforts. We'll continue to work together on that particular file. Also wanted to let you know, of course, as well, there's a few other key files that I've been working on, and probably one of those ones that really not many other MPs have spoken about is some form of support and assistance for the summer camp industry. We actually probably have more summer camps in our area per capita than anywhere else in the country, and so we recognize that it's important socially and culturally, but also most definitely economically in our area. And so I've been working on that file as well, and I think we're making some progress, which is also good news. My office is I continue to be open for appointments, and we are obviously answering lots of calls for people that are having challenges with the changes to the different government programs, not the least of which, of course, is the CERB transitioning to EI. And so we continue to assist folks in that area as well. So I'll probably leave it there, Your Worship. I don't know if there is time for any questions, but I wanted to make sure that I left a few minutes if there was any questions for me, or any ideas or suggestions too. I'm happy to take direction from you fine folks.
Well, thank you very much. We've truly appreciated your support on the broadband file, and we will miss Kirsten at our meetings, but Jessica was at the last meeting and seems to be right up to speed on that. So we're looking forward to continuing to work with you on that. Council, do you have any questions for Member of Parliament Scott Aitchison? Use your participant button to let me know if you have your hand up. And I see no questions coming to you from our council. So thank you very much, Scott, for coming. And I do know, I see one question from Councillor Osborne now. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As briefly as possible, I'd just like to get your reaction to today's announcement about a small amount of vaccine coming into the country that the Liberal government is waving the flag about. Could I just get your reaction briefly? Thank you.
Well, I think it's good news. We were obviously all last week and before pushing the government to give us some indication of when we would see those vaccines. And so today's announcement is a little bit of good news. They've got a ways to go for sure, and we're eager to see that happen as soon as possible so that all of us can get our lives and livelihoods back as soon as possible in 2021. So it's a good start.
Supplementary.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. I noticed one MP in the House mentioned that Australia has a plan. And our Liberal government says that they have a plan. The problem is the plan usually has components. And thus far, we don't know what we're getting when and how much? And I'm thinking, does the government know, or are they truly ignorant of the facts and just don't have a real answer? Are they holding back, do you think? I don't know. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I'm probably probably not all that interested in getting into a House of Commons style partisan discussion about how the Liberals are doing. Just suffice to say, they're letting us know their plans little bit by little bit. It's good news that there's some vaccines coming, and we want to see them sooner rather than later. I will say, as you mentioned, Australia. I'm on the Heritage Committee, and we're having some discussions about the Broadcasting Act and making sure that we level the playing field amongst sort of the small community newspapers and existing local news, television, that kind of thing, and the internet giants. And I keep hearing about Australia having a really great model. So I've been learning a lot about some of the good things that are going on in Australia. So I'll leave it at that, Councillor Osborne.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Don't see any. Thank you very, very much, Scott, for coming. And as I do know, and I will encourage our councillors and our constituents, I do know your doors are always open. So
yeah,
you for all you
call
do.
anytime. Thanks very much, Your Worship, and council, have a great meeting. I see you have a long agenda.
Okay, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. David Bywater is here from the Georgian Bay Biosphere. Hi, David.
Good evening.
And I will remind you, you have a lengthy report which is in our council package that I hope everybody has read. And if you could keep your presentation to 10 minutes, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. Can you start the presentation?
We can, David, but my understanding is if you wish, you could
Oh,
do it.
You
sure.
can do your own
Maybe
thing.
that's you.
Todd.
We'll never do it in 10 minutes.
All right. So I didn't know I had share screen function. So.
Okay.
All right. Come on. There we go. Good evening. My name is David Bywater. I'm the Conservation Program Manager for the Georgian Bay Biosphere, and it's my pleasure to be here today. We are here to report on the incredible progress the ICECAP Regional Partnership made in 2020 and share what members have proposed for 2021. We'd like to acknowledge the hard work of our volunteer co-chairs, Daryl Moffat and Forrest Pengra, and the contributions of our communications and technical advisory members, as well as support of Becky Pollock and Greg Mason and Benjamin John at the GBB. Climate change is one of the most urgent issues we are facing, and we can only tackle it by working together. ICECAP is the best response our region has, an innovative, inclusive, and cost-effective way of reducing emissions and transitioning energy systems. It's important to remember that ICECAP is a regional partnership and is less than a year old, so we are still learning as we go. We have some confirmed members, we're working on bringing other members on board, and have a strong number of community partners as well. ICECAP is designed to integrate municipal, First Nations, and community partners. ICECAP officially launched in February of 2020. It seems like a different world and a long, long time ago. And this is a picture of our first stakeholder meeting. We've achieved a lot since then, and I want to share those accomplishments with you. So you have signed a resolution to participate in the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Partners for Climate Protection Program. So I might say PCP in the rest of this presentation, and that's what I'm referring to. It essentially has 5 milestones and provides 10 years to achieve them. You've successfully completed milestone 1, which involves making a baseline calculation and forecast of greenhouse gas emissions for both the community and municipal operations. All of the reports you've received in your package have been vetted by town staff and submitted to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for review and formal acceptance. ICECAP has established many community partnerships and built recognition along with corporate partners. It's been the focus of a number of articles and participated in 2 studies. And perhaps one of the biggest accomplishments is, from what we can tell, ICECAP members are the first communities in Canada to include recreational boat emissions in their community assessments. And that's getting some good attention from other partners. Although we did not have a significant communications budget this last year, we worked with our partners to spread the word through media, social media, and newsletters. ICECAP needs all of its members to be ambassadors for its ambitious work. It's gaining a social media presence and engaging with thousands of people. The Carbon Calculator has been an impressive tool for doing this. We want to thank the North Bay Parry Sound Health Unit for sponsoring our contest this fall. We'd also like to share with you the results of Corporate and Community Milestone 1 of the PCP program. Corporate refers to the Township of Seguin's internal operations, and community refers to the broader community's activities in terms of energy use and greenhouse gas emissions in homes and businesses. To analyze your corporate emissions, we had to collect a lot of data to determine the emissions produced by the town's buildings, fleets, streetlights, water, wastewater infrastructure, solid waste. Your staff were incredibly helpful in providing some of the data necessary to undergo this activity. Our analysis found that there are two major greenhouse gas producing areas for Seguin's operations: buildings and fleet. By combining all sources of emissions, you now have a baseline, a number which can be compared for future. And it was found that if nothing is to change, or you continued with business as usual, then the greenhouse gas emissions for Seguin's operations are expected to increase by 25% by the year 2030. Depending on the cost of energy, those financial costs associated with energy consumption can also be expected to go up. Fortunately, the next step in the PCP program is to set a reduction target. Next year, we will support you in creating a realistic but ambitious target to reduce emissions by a certain percentage. We will use established processes and get input from staff for setting that target. Now, if we look at milestone 1 for the community, which you also have as a report, we completed a similar data analysis of greenhouse gas emissions. This is a much longer and more difficult task, as you can see by the report. For now, we'll look at the big picture, that community transportation produces the most emissions, specifically from vehicles on roads. This is followed by the commercial and residential sectors as being large emitters. The values you see here are pretty typical of a rural community like Seguin. It's quite common that transportation emissions will exceed 50% of the community's total, and that the residential commercial sector will also be significant. The emissions information allows for a production of a community baseline, which future numbers can be paired against to measure performance. And similar to the corporate forecasts, the community can expect their greenhouse gas emissions to increase by nearly 25% by 2030, if nothing is to change or business were to continue as usual. Next year, milestone 2 for the community will involve setting a reduction target for 2030. And setting this target is proposed as part of the 2021 work plan. But before we look to 2021, we first want to congratulate you on achieving milestone 1 by awarding you a certificate that can be updated as you complete all 5 milestones. Since we're over Zoom, I can't really give you a physical copy right now, so we'll be sure to get one to staff and they can present it to you. So looking ahead to 2021, we have 3 program areas: regional activities, the PCP program, and First Nations climate action. Annual work plans and budgets for ICECAP will vary by year, and 2021 is a big year as we embark on milestones 2 and 3. And in particular, milestone 3, developing climate action plans, is a big body of work, which also includes a lot of communications, outreach, and education. For 2021, ICECAP is requesting $14,500 per municipal member. A collaborative approach to climate and energy programming is more cost-effective. For example, our approach for this past year has driven down the cost per municipal member from an estimated $40,000 to $8,000 per member. So this collaborative approach has resulted in high-quality products for a low cost. Another important reminder is that as per the MOU, we are actively seeking and applying to grants to leverage member funds and ultimately reduce these contributions. For example, we have submitted a grant for over $200,000 to Environment and Climate Change Canada to support ICECAP's work plan, and we will continue to explore other funding options through 2021. In summary, ICECAP is a cost-efficient solution for regional climate and energy programming. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, David. We have a question for you from Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe David, you can remove the screen sharing.
Sure can.
The question, there's kind of two parts, but they're kind of the same thing. Where does Seguin fit with the balance of the other municipalities in the region in terms of the numbers and the statistics that we've calculated and accumulated this past year?
Yeah, so compared to other municipalities in the region, Seguin has the highest emissions, with Parry Sound having nearly the same amount. But it's important to recognize that those emissions are largely dependent on the number of citizens, if it's permanent or seasonal, that are within that municipality. So if we're comparing permanent resident population, Seguin's is the second largest among ICECAP members and has a large seasonal population. It's also hard to compare Seguin's to the rest of Ontario because your Milestone 1 baseline is unique in that you have seasonal boat emissions, and nobody else in Ontario has done that. But big picture wise, it's pretty accurate for a rural township like Seguin, where you have the biggest proportion being transportation.
So just to follow up, David, have we, for the benefit of others, have looked into maybe the impact of COVID? We know that we've got a number of more residents living here. So obviously we potentially have uptick in those numbers, and we're also targeting, to try to make reductions in our greenhouse gas emissions. Where do we sit with the impact of COVID with respect to our numbers are going forward?
Yeah, it's tough to say because we don't actually have that data per se, right? The baseline did not include this COVID year. But emissions are dependent on the number of people that are residing within an area. So if more people are present, it's pretty safe to say that emissions are increasing as well. If you look at provincially, what's happened is electrical utility companies have shared with us that what they're seeing is a downcrease in some of the commercial energy usage, but then an increase in the same amount in residential, and perhaps that might also be happening in Seguin Township.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, David. Just one quick question. Do you have any idea, can you tell how many Seguin residents have completed the ICECAP calculation? Can you tell that by township?
Yes, I don't have numbers right at my fingertips right now, but can get you an answer.
I think it would be useful, kind of as a report card when we communicate with our constituents to say, where we are, because we're trying to encourage them to do it, but we need a carrot a little bit, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So that would be useful. We have a question, last question from Councillor Collins.
Yes. Hello, David, and welcome. David, I'm looking at the community baseline and forecast. I'm especially looking at the water-borne transportation and how you base that figure on the 39.7, because that's even higher than the road transportation. So how did you guesstimate that figure at 39.7? What statistics are you basing that on? Simply, and just let me finish here, David, is that in the last 15 years, the majority of boats in our area are pleasure craft, and they're mostly powered by clean, efficient four-stroke engines. And this has been based on the last 15 years. The old two-stroke engines really don't exist that much anymore, and there's very few diesel engines out there. So how did you come up with that 39.7, if you don't mind me asking? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. The primary author that got into all those details, Ben John, is not able to join me in the deputation because it's one individual from ICECAP. So I will get you an answer.
Yes, thank you, David, because I just feel that that's a high calculation. I just wanted to know how your stats played out.
We're confident in the results. I can assure you of that, and we can provide that clarification for you.
Thank you.
Great. We'll look forward to getting it back, David. Thank you. Thank you very much for sticking to your time and for giving us your information. Nadine, I see you have joined, but I don't see you on screen. Are you going to join us visually?
I
Oh,
can.
there you are. Okay, so thank you very much, Nadine, for all you do at the museum. And
Thank you.
you have your 10 minutes to present.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Rob Wood is also with me. He's our new chair of the board at the museum. So 2020 didn't exactly go to what we had planned. Shortly after the lockdown started in March, part of the museum sprinkler system froze and burst. Fortunately, the water damage was contained to hallways and there was no damage to artifacts or exhibits. The incident was a bit of a mixed blessing. The company that conducted the repairs graciously offered to donate materials and surfaces to repair some of the museum's exterior siding and seal off the attic from rodents, specifically raccoons, and replace the insulation in the attic. These repairs were above and beyond what was required to fix the water damage. They were repairs that needed to be done and would not have been possible without the generosity of Sure General Contracting out of Toronto. The pandemic introduced some new challenges, including drastically altering how we allow visitors to access public spaces. This curtailed revenue generation through admission, gift shop sales, and rentals. We had 3 staff members this year, and during the lockdown, the collection supervisor and communications intern focused on creating digital content in order to engage and communicate with our audiences. Our collection supervisor also managed to catch up on cataloging some of our image collection remotely while she was off-site. I myself was focused on administrative tasks as well as coordinating the repairs to the museum. We reopened our doors in the summer to patrons by appointment only, and both permanent staff members voluntarily reduced their working hours throughout the summer in order to help cut down expenses. As we move into 2021, the museum board and staff feel like we are doing so on a high note. This November, we opened a very different type of exhibit. The Adam Brown Adventure and an Escape Room Experience was a new venture for staff and made possible by the support of Team Marshall and Georgian Bay Software. To date, we've had over 15 groups go through the experience and have received very positive feedback. The Genealogy Club is continuing to meet monthly via Zoom and on Giving Tuesday, which was last week. So we've generously offered to match up to $500 for donations made that day. Our goal was to raise $1,000, and thanks to the amazing support of the West Prairie Sound District, we raised over $6,000. We acknowledge that there are going to be challenges in 2021, including operational shortfalls, trying to fund capital reserve fund to take care of our building. But we are looking forward to continuing to serve the West Prairie Sound District through the opening of a new permanent exhibit in the Eroy Smith Gallery, new exhibits such as the Adam Brown Adventure, and launching a docent program in the new year, as well as the continued development of new digital content. We encourage you to book an appointment to visit the museum to see our exhibits and collections. Myself or one of our brand new docents would be happy to provide a personal tour through our collections room, as well as our exhibit spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadine, and welcome, Robert.
Hi there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Council. When Nadine invited me to join in here, I felt it would be the perfect opportunity to speak about some of the board level activity. While Nadine and Amy have been navigating the challenges of the pandemic, Nadine has also had to deal with some significant board turnover. The other side of that is that the board is very energized and motivated to providing the tools that she needs to succeed. Councillor Moffat, along with the Finance Committee, has worked very hard to bring our financial documentation in line. Our Strategic Development Committee has been very busy drumming up ideas for the coming season, including the aforementioned docent program. Finally, we are committed to continuing with our community outreach. This includes a partnership with Trestle Brewery and their Arrow Beer, hosting the Georgian Bay Biosphere and their canoe exhibit, as well as outreach into the various district communities. You can expect to see the museum staff, volunteers or board members out and about gathering community stories. In our mission statement, we mentioned collecting, archiving, and preserving history, and we feel that very often stories can be more valuable and often have more longevity than artifacts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. We have a couple councillor questions. First, Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to follow up with Rob. One of the things at the board level we talked about was ensuring that we had staff to be able to do our work. And maybe Rob, maybe you can speak to that, given that we retained our 3 staff members throughout this period, and we hopefully will reap some benefits of that going forward.
Well, one of the benefits of keeping the staff on when we maybe haven't been as busy is that Amy has been able to do some catching up with our archiving, and we were always so far behind on that we're actually able to make a little headway. And I know Nadine can probably speak a little more to that.
Yes, absolutely. We have over 10,000 objects in our collection. Amy focused over the summer on updating our images. We have what is called Past Perfect. It's a digital database, and it allows us to quickly search through our images. So when we get a request for an image of Seguin, we can quickly type into a search rather than going downstairs and manually going through, I think it's 6 different filing cabinets looking for a particular image. So what she was doing was scanning the images so that we can see them on our computer screen, as well as entering in keywords so that when you search for Seguin or any other keyword, that you're getting relevant images that you can see visually without having to take the time to go downstairs.
Thank you, Rob and Nadine. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. Nadine, is that available to the public, searching the archives?
Right now, no. Because of COVID, we've reduced the availability to our staff spaces to only staff. If you want to do some research, you can email us and we'd be happy to conduct it on your behalf. Research fees are currently free for the first 30 minutes and then $25 an hour. We are launching into a new program where we're going to digitize our North Stars, in which case they will be available digitally. We are trying to get a kiosk open in the museum where individuals can come and go through what we have available without having staff do the research for them. Anything that we have digitally, we like to make available to the general public as much as possible. Unfortunately, some of our archives are so fragile that it is much better if we restrict access to only staff.
All right. What I meant, Nadine, was online access to.
No, at this point, there is not any online access.
Is there any plans going forward to maybe do that someday?
Yes.
All right. I won't pursue it too far. I have a couple of questions for both you and Rob. This request, I understand our engagement with the museum has been 16,640 previous years, mm-hmm. And you're looking for a 5% increase in funding if possible because of your shortfall. That would amount to $800 or $900 from Seguin. Totaling up all the requests from area townships, would this 5% cover your shortfall of 40,000 in your operational?
No, it would not. We are asking because we do have, it's not just because of the pandemic that we have this shortfall. It is our operational funding that is out there is insufficient to cover the costs of operating the museum. We are taking care of a building. We have a poorly funded reserve fund, and the government grants out there are typically project-based. So anytime we start looking for funding, really what it is for activities above and beyond what we are doing.
Okay,
So we are looking for alternative ways because we don't want to put everything onto the municipalities. We are looking for alternate ways to make up that shortfall, but we're beginning by asking for an increase in funding from the municipalities.
could you answer this, please? What level of funding from the municipalities would be, what percent increase would be necessary to cover your 40,000 shortfall this year? Any idea? Total, to cover it totally.
To cover it total, I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I can certainly email that to you and get that answer to you.
Yeah, I think our council would be interested in knowing that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Nadine and Robert, and you are doing great work, and anybody that hasn't been to the train exhibit, go. It's pretty neat. Or at least book an appointment. I guess that's what they need to do, isn't it?
Yes, it's still due to COVID. Unfortunately, that kind of stalled their plans to reopen it, but we have some pretty solid plans in place to ensure that we do open it in 2021.
And if you haven't gone to the Adam Brown exhibit, you should check it out. There's 2 weeks left, I believe, and it's fun for the whole family. It's something a little different.
And it also is by appointment only, is it?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for all you do to help our community. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy, over to you on Safe Quiet Lakes update. And again, I'll remind you
Hello.
that you have 10 minutes.
We sent in a presentation. Do you have it? Are you going to show it for me, or should I share my screen?
I think it's better if you share your screen, then you have control of it. But the council did receive it. But if you want to share it.
I will. Just have to find it on my screen.
Nope, we can see it now.
Is it there?
Yes.
Thank you, it is.
Excellent. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for welcoming me with such a great group of very busy people. And thank you, as always, for your incredible support, founding support from Seguin. It's truly appreciated. We have a lot to tell you about, and I hope I respect the time. If not, just give me a little kick under the table somehow, virtually. Many of you know me already. I like Joe Cottager, and I'm a founding board member of Safe Quiet Lakes. I want to give you a quick update to let you know what we did this summer, and also tell you about two really exciting projects that we're working on, and then end with a list of things that we can work on together. So as you know, we developed this Voters Code to help get the conversation started. Positive grassroots conversations and education are keys to driving change, probably in everything that you hear about, and especially with voters and in our cottage environment.
We lost you. We lost your presentation.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I will try that again. I'm not a pro at this. I really appreciate your patience.
Okay, we can see it again.
I really appreciate your patience. Thank you. And now I have to learn how to change the screens there. Oh. It's not working for me.
I think if you just use the arrows on your keyboard to go one by one, instead of using the arrow at the bottom of the picture, the arrow at the bottom of the picture ends the presentation.
It seems to do that. Well, I was clicking on it before. So as you know, I'll just do it
The
this
other way to do it is to go over to your side and just click on number 2. See where your slides are? To click on the next, now click down, and there's the
Yes.
next.
Thank you. I really appreciate this. So data drives our priorities. Most of you remember the surveys, outreach, and advocacy, and building partnerships, which is why I'm here. Our program for 2020, everybody remembers that heartbreaking feeling in March, and I'm really proud to say that we were able to get an awful lot done during the summer. We continued to distribute our materials through marinas. We did Lake Association presentations. We had our first ever Share the Lakes Award. We held our stakeholder meeting, to which some of you were able to attend. Thank you. And we advanced 2 really important programs. This one I'm really proud about, and this is something that I feel in Seguin we can work on together. We, this summer, we tested tactics to reduce wakes on the Indian River and Mirror Lake. So looking at various signage and buoy ideas with the intention of installing consistent a consistent visual messaging throughout our boating region, so that when you see whatever messages they are, you know what they mean immediately. And this would be supported by a comprehensive education campaign. So it's a step up from the Boaters Code, which is at marinas and private launches and on cards and so on. These are things that are on the water in places where you really need to pay attention. This program got a lot of publicity in cottage life, and we're really proud of it. And as you know, there's a VOR in place on the 3 big lakes and various other places in Muskoka. And this program is meant to work with that VOR and make everybody aware of where, for instance, speeding and large wakes are inappropriate. The next very exciting program that we have is the Decibel Coalition. We are working to bring in federal, as you know, boating rules or federal decibel limits for boat engine noise. This is not to make everybody whisper quiet. This is reasonable rules that are in place all over the US and in the EU, using standards that exist. As many of you know, our current federal law for mufflers is virtually unenforceable. And this is a small change that would enable our OPP and all enforcement across the country to crack down on excessively noisy boats. We have been approaching people across the country, and we have the support of the MLA, Georgian Bay Association, and many others. And we're working on a way to get municipalities involved. So we'll be back to you about that. So these are the 3 things that we want to work with you on, especially the Wakes and Speed project. I'd like your help to bring this into our area in Seguin. As many of you know, I'm also very involved with Lake Joseph North. So I know our lake would love it, but I know many of the other lakes around would like to work on water signage and education on wakes and speed. We want to talk to you about the Decibel Project Coalition, and Lauren didn't, sorry, we want to, I see there's another typo in there, but we really appreciate your ongoing support. Seguin's support has been leadership and so important to us going forward. You help show all the other municipalities the way. And as this year, as in past years, we have applied to the grant program for $2,000. Thanks again for that support. We totally appreciate, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Councillors, do you have any questions for Nancy? I see none coming up, Nancy, but I applaud what you're doing, and I know that the Decibel Coalition is going to be an enormous lobbying effort in Ottawa. So good luck with that, and you're going to need to tell us how we could help, because I know it's going to affect legislation.
Yes, and we'll be back to you on that. We are, and if you want to talk offline about how best you think that would work, we'd be happy to do that. We didn't want to take up this meeting time with that, but we'd be happy to meet and get your advice on how municipalities, and also we'll be talking to Scott and to others over time to move that forward.
Thank you very much for your time and your presentation, Nancy.
Thank you. And thank you for my patience getting started. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we're ahead of schedule. So do we go to staff reports? Or is the person, the public meeting?
Well, we can't start the public meeting till 5:30. Because, yeah, let me just get you the ones who received them.
So we're 10 minutes ahead of schedule, so I think we're going to jump to number 8 to do a couple staff reports, because we can't open the public meeting until the 5:30 time frame. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for December 7th, 2020 meeting of Council. Could I have a motion by Councillor Osborne?
So move.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Fellner.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. So we'll move to the financial report with Michelle, if we can. Go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, there we go. As you can see, we're forecasting a surplus of about 253,000. We are starting to see some actual savings from COVID. So things like the hydro savings from the arena have now been quantified for the year. Our fourth quarter firefighters honorariums were finalized. So we're $60,000. We're $60,000 under budget there. Again, building permit fees continue to be strong. Since this update, I believe we've had even more come in. So we will have a fairly large transfer to the building permit reserve at the end of the year after we do that full calculation. Capital projects are on schedule. We do have a few that will be put off to next year. Not very many though. And the reserves are here. What is not included in the reserves is the COVID-19 reserve, which will be whatever the balance is of the $609,000 that we received for any COVID funding. And really, that's about it.
Okay, we have a question from Councillor Moffat.
Yep.
Thank you. Actually, I have a series of questions, but I'm going to take them offline and deal directly with Michelle on most of them. The one thing I was wondering about with the OPP, I see that we don't have it's billed on a quarterly basis. Just wanted to know, is it on track for what we expect, or do we have any variance expected with regards to that?
We have some minor savings from the OPP, and it's mainly due to the revenues that we get. I believe so far this year, maybe $5,000 or $6,000 is the total revenue that we've received to offset that. But really, it's going to end up being fairly close to budget.
Okay. One of my bigger questions, I'm really struggling to understand how we ended up with $60,000 firefighter honorarium, how we were so far off on that analysis.
Well, if you recall, during COVID, there was not much training going on. And the firefighters do get paid for their training hours.
Okay.
So they weren't paid for those hours because they weren't training. So
Okay.
that's a lot of it. We also didn't have as many calls because people were staying home. There just weren't the calls. So
The other piece of it, that our firefighters didn't respond to EMS calls during COVID.
yes.
So that reduced significantly.
Yeah, no, I'm aware of that because I've spoken to some firefighters and I know that there's,
Mhm.
some of them were doing it offline versus,
Mhm.
online, because they felt they had a duty. So I guess the bigger or broader question is that I'm surprised that we're just seeing this significant amount coming through here in Q4, where we knew we could have telegraphed this a little bit better earlier in the year. And
No,
I'm just
not really.
surprised at the move.
I'd have to disagree with that because really, if we have one or two big fires or big incidents, it will blow the entire quarter right out of the water. So it really isn't until the final numbers are in that we know what the savings is going to be from that.
So on the broader spectrum, though, the same comment applies to the hydro and the training where, we, in all likelihood, we would have been able to sort of calculate this a little bit more real time than in the last quarter.
Possibly. We are doing a lot more training now, more than what we were doing in May and June.
Sure.
And there's an awful lot more being offered. So we have used up some of it in the last quarter and we really weren't sure if we were going to. So.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome.
Councillor Osborne.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Question, Michelle, on capital projects.
Yep.
Can you, I don't know if you can answer this, where we are with the ancillary road improvements on that contract we gave to Fowler? Are we spending it now? Is it stalled?
Okay, I'm not sure.
What's going to happen by the end of 20?
Ancillary road project. I'm not sure what that is.
Well, that was the contract to repair and resurface a number of different roads scattered throughout the township, Horseshoe Lake Road being one.
Okay, yep.
And I've been asking the director of Public Works where it stands, and the answer I get is we're waiting for Fowler. Well, it's snowing, and I wonder, do we wait till 21, or is there any way out of that contract, or where do we stand, I guess?
That is a question for Peter. Peter, can you pop in and answer that?
I'm asking this relative to, your budgeted amount for the year and what we spent, right? Okay.
Peter has a better idea of actually where the program is.
Okay.
But any of the dollars that were not spent this year, if the project hasn't been completed, will be carried forward. But Peter has some information on the program itself.
Thank you.
The snowstorm at the beginning of last week basically shut off the paving for the rest of the year. The asphalt plant is closed as of last Friday. There's some work still to be done on Rankin Lake Road, and there's still work to be done on Horseshoe Lake Road. But outside of those two, everything else was done. And I will say that we have assurances that they will be done first thing in the new year when the conditions are right. They apologize for not getting them done.
So that would be May of 21, maybe?
Yeah, May,
Okay.
May, June.
All right, thank you. It's just unfortunate we didn't have I just feel that we didn't have the proper commitment from the contractor. It was kind of loosey-goosey. I don't know why, but a lot of time has gone by since we approved that, and I just question why we didn't get our full value.
You will get your full value. It's just,
yeah, everything happens in time. Okay.
No, again, but it was out of our control.
Well, I guess that's my point, Peter. Going forward, I'd like to see that the township has more control over these contractors so that when they commit to do something, they do it. They let us down. Obviously, they let you down. But I'd like to if we can avoid that in the future. That's the only point I'm trying to make here. And I'm not pointing fingers at you. I'm just suggesting that we need to hold these contractors accountable. Thank you.
If you put liquidated damages on it and to have a confirmed date, you're gonna have a much higher increase in the cost. So we try to find a way to where they have an opportunity and not force them. Otherwise, you're gonna have much higher costs. So
All right.
unfortunately, it didn't work out this year. It will be done in the early summer next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I don't see any other questions. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to the budget. This was a polling. We're going to go to public meeting now, so we'll go back to item 7 on your agenda. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Consent application number 2B 2020-0018-F and B 2020-0019-F for Reach International. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I move your motion, Mayor.
Thank you, and seconded by Councillor Vincent.
Second that?
All in favor of moving to a public meeting? Thank you.
Maybe just give them a moment to come in, the public.
The PM.
Hello.
Is that Luther's thing?
That's
Yes. Hi.
Hello, Luther. So you can hear us?
Yes, very well. Thank you for the audience.
Okay, so I have some verbiage that I will read that goes before your application, and you will have an opportunity to speak to it if you wish. Council will now hold public meetings for proposed consent applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the Council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the local planning appeal tribunal may dismiss the appeal. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the local planning appeal tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose of consent application numbers B 2020-0018-F and B 2020-0019-F for Reach International Incorporated is to create 2 new rural lots. The proposed severed lot 1, which is application number 2020-0018-F, would have a lot area of 8.1 hectares and 680 meters of frontage on Otter Lake Road. The proposed severed lot 2, which is application number B 2020-0019-F, would have a lot area of 8.1 hectares and 450 meters of frontage on Bradshaw Road. The retained lot would have a lot area of 10.4 hectares and 420 meters of frontage on Carter's Landing Road and 255 meters of frontage on Otter Lake Road. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on November 23rd, 2020. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has anyone registered to speak in favor of or in opposition to these applications?
Mr. Desai, the applicant, and Bev Wicks of Riverstone Environmental Solutions Incorporated, agent for the applicant, have registered to speak. And I believe also Mr. Savas Veritas may be present to answer questions.
Okay. Do you want, who wants to speak to it? Mr. Zay?
Okay, hello. Just thank you. I'm very new to this procedure, and I'm just here to answer any questions from the public and to listen to your suggestions and advice in this. And I guess I stand by, guided by Bev, our environmental professional who's done the report. So I'm just here to be of service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bev, do you have anything you wish to add?
No, I'm just here to answer questions at this point, if council has any questions.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions of either Ms.
Just ask Mr. Mayor, I believe that's what he's in here for.
Oh, Savas?
Yeah.
Savas, are you here for this? Do you have anything to add?
Actually, no, I'm here for an item that's a few items down on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure.
No problem.
Okay, Council, do you have any questions for the property owner or Ms. Wicks? I don't see any questions. So I will continue. Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
No correspondence has been received.
And council had no questions? Thank you. So council will now close the public meeting and reconvene the regular meeting. And we like to see properties being severed. So I have a motion now that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. That's for consent application numbers B 2020-0018-F and B 2020-0019-F for Reach International. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that.
All in favor of moving out of the public meeting? Thank you. Now, okay, so can we explain to Mr. C what's going to happen next? Okay, you will hear from the planning department now that there have been no comments or questions from council. So Director Stone will be in touch with you for the next step.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for your time and consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Wicks. So we're going to go back to item 8B, which is Community Services Report on the Foley Fire Hall. Dominique, can you speak to that?
Yes, this is just a follow-up report from the November 2nd council meeting, where it came to council to discuss some options for clearing the snow from the Foley Public Rink behind the fire hall. Also on November 19th, the Foley Recreation Committee met again and actually approved $1,500 to go towards the purchase. So this report is just giving you some numbers, and the recommendation after talking with Danny Shoebottom is that they would like a 32-inch snowblower, a walk-behind snowblower, and the costs and everything associated are in the report.
Thank you, Dominique. We have a question from Councillor Moffat.
Thank you, Mayor. Dominique, what is the timeline to acquire the snow blower?
Depending on council's approval, it is going to go in the 2021 budget. So as we're now mid-December, I think we could probably safely do it first thing in the new year.
So have we reached out to Bobcat at Perry Sound to see if they actually have a snow blower available to us?
They did at the time. This was a couple of weeks ago. They do have some in stock, but you know, we have other research we can do. There's other you know, sellers out there that we can contact if they don't have anything in stock.
Okay. Mayor, I'd like to move this back into 2020. We've just seen a very large surplus associated with our 2020 year. We also, I would expect some savings in the community services budget in other areas, that this should be moved into 2020 and purchased, given that we may be out of luck and we may be delayed. And if we do that, we have no snow blower for the ice rink at the Foley Community Center.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Thank you, Councillor Moffat, for bringing that forward. I think the analysis done on behalf of the administration has made a recommendation. We're at council's discretion how you'd like to move forward, but the recommendation, as I understand it, is to purchase in 2021. I think standard practices would be that if we were to order, pending council approval this evening, if we were to order that snow blower tomorrow and we didn't receive it until 2021, we would therefore accrue those payments in 2021. Ms. Razor can correct me if I'm wrong, but again, we're at your recommendations, council. We're happy to proceed however you see fit.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Councillor Osborne.
Just a comment, Mayor, thank you. I would suggest that I would agree the 32-inch electric start be purchased as opposed to a pull start. I've had experience with that. I would also suggest that we check with more than one dealer to make sure we get the best price. Thank you.
We
So
can
I think that
certainly.
is, and Councillor Collins, and then Councillor Fellner.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Even if we were to place a deposit for now, and that will guarantee what we're looking for at this time, and we can move from there. I mean, if it's going to be in 2021 when it's delivered, fine. But at least for now, we can place a deposit on it and get the ball rolling. Thank you.
You, Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I think we should order the thing tomorrow morning, so we don't get caught short. I don't know historically whether they start flooding the ice during the Christmas holidays or how they get the start on it. You know, that's typically a time where people got a lot of free time. It'd be sort of, if that's their plan, it would be nice to have the machine there for them in case there's significant snowfalls. But, you know, to Councillor Moffat's concern, you know, seems like everybody's running out of stock of everything these days. And I'd hate to get caught short. So I think the prudent thing is to order ASAP.
So Dominique, what I'm hearing is two things. One, do a little bit of research, make sure you've got the very best price as quickly as you can, and make sure there's a machine available as soon as you can. And my feeling is that, you know, staff has written a recommendation to 2021. As long as it doesn't delay the actual purchase of the snowmobile, I think this is someplace where we should let the staff recommendation stand. But we don't want to get caught without a snow blower if there's ice to clean.
Yeah, and we have a good relationship with Bobcat in Perry Sound, and maybe there's something we can do to get it a bit earlier, but still invoice it come January. I can talk with them about that.
Okay, thank you. I have, sorry.
Daryl would move this if you read it and he's fine with it.
Okay. Okay. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve the purchase of a Honda Electric Start 32-inch walk-behind snowblower for the Foley Fire Hall outdoor rink to be stored in the Foley Fire Hall, Station 10, from Bobcat of Perry Sound in the amount of $3,306.12 to be allocated from the 2020 contingency fund.
Because I don't know.
That, if you want that, Councillor Moffat, does that meet your goal?
Well, the only thing it doesn't need is the review of another vendor. So we've hardwired in the Bobcat of Perry Sound. So I think it would be prudent to, I'm not sure, hardwiring in or look at, you know, alternative. But the fact of the matter is that if we don't act, I think we're going to be out of a snowblower in short order. So if Dominique is able to acquire one from Bobcat of Perry Sound at a price that is comparable to, you know, a Honda dealership in Huntsville or Barrie or whatever, then we would move forward with Bobcat of Perry Sound. But I'm not sure we want to hardwire that in the resolution at this stage. Mayor.
Can I so you're recommending an amendment to the, resolution that would take out the name of Bobcat Perry Sound, but I would recommend that if we did that, we would still stay with the amount at $3,306 as
Correct.
the maximum, because we've got that quote. If we can beat it, fine, but if somebody else comes in higher, so I would, can I make that? So I would read stored in the fire hall. In the, it would just simply take out the phrase from Bobcat of Perry Sound in the amount of $3,306.12.
The only thing I would ask though, Dominique, when you spoke to Bobcat at Perry Sound, that was 2 weeks ago, or was it, just last week? What I worry about is that, do we want to just round the number as opposed to $3,306.12, so that we have just a round number in the event that there's a plus or minus?
Clerk has something to say?
Just one comment maybe for Dominique to clarify. That amount originally was just the township portion.
Yeah.
So as long as council remembers that in the motion right now, that's not the amount to purchase it.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's our contribution. I think this is a place where I believe that staff can make some decisions.
Yep.
Maybe make a couple phone calls, and order something.
Agreed.
And I would like to have, okay, and our chief administrative officer would like to speak to this.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll be brief. We have purchasing policies in place. I just, oddly enough, was reviewing it just yesterday in detail. Of course, your administration will proceed with any purchase that's compliant with our purchasing policies as approved by council.
Perfect.
Thank you. So I'm going to read the motion without Bobcat of Perry Sound in here. And I'm going to... Okay. The motion that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve the purchase of a Honda Electric Start 32-inch walk-behind snowblower for the Foley Fire Hall outdoor rink to be stored in the Foley Fire Hall, Station 10, in the amount of $3,310 to be allocated from the 2020 contingency budget. Could I have that motion, Councillor Moffat?
I so move, Mayor.
And could I have a seconder from Councillor Osborne?
Second.
Thank you, and thank you, Dominique. I trust you'll go and get the best value. Now, I still see a hand up for Councillor Collins. Do you have a comment? And another one for Councillor Osborne. Do you still have your hand up, Councillor Osborne?
Yes. Madam Mayor, our CAO just informed us that with our purchasing policy, I'm not sure why this is coming to council when our director has the ability to do this without the approval of township, I thought. And secondly, you didn't call vote on the motion, seconded motion. Thank you.
Yes, I have. Well, I was asking, I thought you had seconded it, but I will ask.
I seconded it, but there was no vote. There was no vote.
We haven't voted yet. You're correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. To your point, Councillor Osborne, one of my early observations, if I may share, is that we bring a lot of administrative tasks to council's attention that we have policy in place to manage, and I think you'll start to see some shifting as we head into 2021 around when we will be bringing these types of things, which we don't need to necessarily because there are policy in place. So you can expect that in the future.
Thank you. Great.
Okay, so we have the motion for motion by Daryl, seconded by Rod Osborne. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Now let's hope that there's enough weather to freeze the ice.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Dominique. Okay, I have a motion here that I believe Dawn Hood will speak to, but I'll read the motion. That as per staff report number DPS.FD-2020-004, purchase of a new fireboat for Lake Joseph North, as per section 5.7 of bylaw number 2011-057 procurement policy, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize the Township of Seguin staff to utilize the negotiation method to obtain a proposal for the provision of a fireboat. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
So move.
And seconded by Councillor Collins.
Yes, I'll second that motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Don, do you want to speak to this before we call a vote?
Yeah, just to give council an update, this boat is being purchased, as it says in the report, from raised funds at Lake Joe North. They've actually raised an additional money since I wrote the report. They're up now over $170,000. We want to basically get an identical boat to what we did with Russell Lake North in 2015. And it was a similar situation where we negotiated with a local vendor the best possible price to move forward.
Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to state that this was a really great community project, and the people on the north end of the lake really embraced the initiative that a very, very hardworking committee undertook in difficult times. So there's a really, really good feeling in the neighborhood about accomplishing this. And they just want to make sure that they've sort of gone above and beyond what the goal was. And they really, they want to make sure that the boat that's delivered is the best boat it can be, you know, you know, based on the experience with the older boat, and perhaps some things that weren't included there, and perhaps, you know, some input from the boots on the ground people that run these things all the time. Make sure that there's things that they'd like to see in this boat are included. So yeah, tremendous effort. It's a, you know, tremendous effort, and it's a great thing for council or for the township. So that's all I really have to say about that.
Councillor Collins, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, the boat, the Russell Lake North boat, what's the length and beam of that boat?
That is a 24-foot pulse craft with a 300 Merc. I believe the beam on that, Councillor Collins, 8.5, 9 feet. You go up to 26 to get the wider beam.
Yes, yes, I know that. I know I was on that boat and I just couldn't remember, because it was basically a pretty, probably one of the smallest fire boats that Stanley Connor Industries makes. As I read the report, I see on the report that it'll be moored at Gordon Bay and be serviced and stored at no cost. And I look at that figure because it's going to be, I don't know how many years that'll be sitting there at Gordon Bay Marine, but I look at that as a savings by going through the third party Gordon Bay Marine. I'm hoping that you deal direct with Connors with the approval of Gordon Bay Marine to make sure you get the boat you want. When it goes to the fit out and rigging, if you need a hand in that, I'll be at your service if you need any help, Don.
Thank you, Councillor. And yes, I've had discussions with both Rod at Connor as well as Gordon Bay Marine and Bruce. And there's a collaborative effort there between the two of them. They just have to decide which works out the best for us and for them, obviously, but for us especially. They both want to participate in this. And as Councillor Fellner have said, it is, we did well at Russell Lake North, But they've done incredibly well in a really tough year to raise those kind of dollars. And it's very impressive, and they're a great team to work with.
Yep. Yeah, no, yes, Don, I know that. I'm just thinking too that there's not that much difference in cost between a 24 and a 26, and you got a 10-foot beam on that. Just
Yes.
a suggestion, and I think the
Yep.
the wider boat, especially with a cabin, you've got a lot more deck space there for firefighters and so on, and apparatus.
Yeah, and we have, as Councillor Fellner mentioned, they raised more money than initially we're hoping to raise, which does give us some breathing room to potentially move to the next size up. Sure.
Yep. Yep. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll just remind you that the motion does talk about the negotiation method, which is in our purchasing policy, which will be followed in this purchase. So we have a motion on the floor, moved by Terry Fellner, seconded by Ted. All in favor? Thank you, and that's carried. Okay, Dawn, I think you're still on the hot seat. I have a motion here that bylaw number 2020-119, being a bylaw to adopt an emergency management program and emergency response plan, and to meet other requirements under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act, and to repeal bylaws number 2009-32 and 2018-3035, and all other bylaws and resolutions or parts thereof contrary hereto or inconsistent herewith, is deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion by Councillor Cole?
Also move.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
Second.
Dawn, do you want to explain this or talk to this a little before we vote?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, to Council. Basically, this is, originally we passed I'm going to reference as generic emergency plan throughout West Perry Sound. And what that plan doesn't indicate is specific positions, not by name, but by position. And Emergency Measures Ontario have come back this year and said, no, we need to know that it's the mayor or the clerk or the fire chief as part of that committee. And so basically, this is basically a housekeeping issue that identifies in each area what EMO deem acceptable without names, but by position.
Is there any other comment? Or Councillor Osborne?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. So Don, what is the position that will be on as a member of that committee? It's not defined in this report. Is it?
No, it depends on which committee. So if you look at the bylaw, some of those committees are identified by position. As previous, they were just identified as that committee.
Okay, I don't quite understand, because the amendment is to identify the position. But if the position is not stated, how can we pass an amendment to the bylaw?
I believe the amendment is to establish the bylaw. The emergency plan is not changing. What's changing is in addition to the emergency plan, the bylaw now indicates different committees that were a part of the emergency plan as a committee. Now it puts a name position-wise to that committee.
All right.
So for instance, Councillor Osborne, if you go to page 229, you will see the various names of the committee and who the persons from time to time hold the following positions. So a safety officer, a liaison officer. And I have in front of me the thick entire bylaw with all of the committees listed. So Office of the Fire Marshal, Emergency Response Plan, they're all listed in here, but they are copious. put it that way.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there any further questions for Chief Hood? Then I will call a vote. All in favor of passing this? Thank you. Okay, and is Dawn going to speak to this? Well, okay. All right, this, I believe, is where Savas is interested in, so I will read the motion. Move this a little bit. I have motion that bylaw number 2020-121, being a bylaw to enter into an amending agreement with James Stannard related to an agreement under section 51, bracket 26 of the Planning Act, RSO, as amended, condition of consent application number 2007-0028-H, and to repeal bylaw number 2009-025, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
Seconded.
And Director Stone, do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, to the rest of council. So this is an old property, hasn't been developed, but when it was created, there was an agreement that was put on title that sort of stipulated a certain house size and location, septic system, etc. Several years have gone by, a new property owner now has control of the property and they want something a little different. So this agreement and bylaw, what it does is it takes the old site plan off it and puts on the new one as per the present owner's desires. Thank you.
Thank you. And Savas, do you want to speak to this at all?
I don't think I really have anything to add. Like, I was just mainly here to answer any questions, or if anything came up that council need clarification on, I'd be able to handle. But I think it's pretty straightforward, and if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Osborne, you have a question.
So it says that this, the application resulted, this is 08, in the creation of one new waterfront lot. So that was already created, Steve?
That's right.
Okay. Now, the site plan, I take it there's going to be a site plan?
Well, there is. This is what, there was one that was part of the agreement back in 08. And
Yes.
this one, it repeals that one and puts on a new site plan.
Okay, is there any need to notify
No.
immediate neighbors of this? Because I have a client who's a neighbor right next door.
Yes, no. This one is strictly an agreement between the property owner and the township. No need to notify.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I am very familiar with this property, and you need to be part mountain goat to build on this.
It's steep.
And it's great blueberry picking, but I understand why they might want to have a different site plan. So we have a motion on the floor, and can I call a vote? All in favor of passing this new site plan? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, Savas, for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Looking forward to meeting our new neighbor. This one, I have a motion that bylaw number 2020-122, being a bylaw to deem lots 4 and 5 of Plan M7 pursuant to section 50, bracket 4 of the Planning Act, not to be a plan of subdivision, property rolls number 4903-050-007-05305, and 4903-050-007-05306, file number D 2020-0013M for Adams, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Can I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Moffat.
I'll second that, Mayor.
And Steve, do you want to take us through this one a little bit?
Yes, this one happens from time to time where we have two small lots. And because of the way they're serviced, the house is on one lot and the septic system is on the other. And to make it okay with the building code, they need to be joined together. So that's what's being applied for. Thank you.
Any questions of Steve? All in favor? Thank you, and that's carried.
Mr. Michael is present.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion here that Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant an exemption for blasting at 18 Waterside Drive, application number E01-2020-0009-C, property roll number 4903-040-002-01505-0000, Michael and others, pursuant to Section 5 of Bylaw Number 2008-104, being a bylaw to prohibit or regulate blasting in areas of the Township of Seguin, subject to the conditions as outlined in the staff report number DPS-PL-2020-139, copy attached as Schedule A to this resolution. Councillor Coles, could I have a motion from you?
I will so move.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
Second?
Thank you. And Mr. Michaels is here, I believe. If anybody, and Steve, do you want to outline what it is? But we also have the property owner on. Steve?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor, to the rest of council. This is an existing non-complying cottage structure that's located within the first 20 meters of the shoreline. And as a result, it is any sort of blasting activity requires an exemption from council because the blasting will occur within 20 meters of the shoreline. So this property is also subject to a minor variance application that Committee of Adjustment will consider next week. But because of the timing and because of the requirement for council approval, we brought this one forward first to deal with the prohibited blasting activity. Thank you.
Thank you. As I understand the diagrams, none of this is going to be visible from the lake.
Yeah, that's correct, because where the cottage will be, it'll be moved slightly backwards. And where this blast rock will come out will be a new basement.
Mr. Michael, do you have anything to add?
No, I have nothing to add unless anybody has any questions.
We have a question from Councillor Fellner.
Nick, go ahead.
Okay, no, not a question, but more of an observation here. There's a bit of a concern. The one existing lot line is pretty close to the existing cottage. And I don't think it's really been identified concisely. So although I have no concern with supporting the approval for the blasting for the reasons outlined, I mean, it's simply to create better drainage, better space. I do think it would be prudent in this case to insert a clause specifying that lot line should be reestablished by an OLS prior to any blasting being performed.
Are you concerned that the cottage is not on the lot?
I'm not concerned the cottage is not on the lot, but I'm concerned that the lot is very, very close. The cottage is very, very close to that lot line, and there's been some concerns raised to me from the abutting landowner that perhaps some of the stuff is floated over onto his lot line, so. But then lot lines are lot lines, and until, you think you know where they are, and you know where they are, and then when they're actually laid out, they're not exactly where everybody thought they would be. So I think the prudent thing on our part is to ask for that side lot line to be reestablished.
Is that something you can do, Steve? I'm assuming there's a survey of this property available.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I'm not in possession of a survey, but what we do from time to time in council approvals is actually to have an OLS verify or locate structures where they're in close proximity to the lot line. So that is a condition that council can add. If you look at the drawing, it looks like minus 3 feet to the property line, and the rock outcrop is pretty close to that the back edge of the property. So it's not unreasonable to ask for verification of the lot line, and we do that with Committee of Adjustment conditions as well. We'll ask for structures to be pinned, their foundation. If you remember the Tate application, we verified the location of the foundation because it was 13 meters from the edge of the water, and we wanted to make sure it didn't get any closer. So that was a condition of approval for that minor variance.
So I'm just going to look to the clerk if I added that this is copy attached to this resolution, and that the lot line would be verified by an Ontario land surveyor.
Sure. Yeah. Subject to the lot lines being.
Subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report, and subject to the lot lines being confirmed by an Ontario land surveyor. Is that what you need, Steve?
That would work. I believe that addresses the councillor's concerns.
Okay. Do I actually put in Ontario land surveyor?
Yes, the full, rather than the acronym, the full language would be fine.
Okay, so I'm not going to read all the property roll numbers, but being a bylaw to prohibit.
Mayor, before you go further, could I ask the owner a question?
Sure.
Mr. Michael, Steve indicated he's not aware, but do you have a current valid survey of the property?
I don't have anything in my possession, but I'm not sure which owner Councillor Fellner might be referring to, as there's two that abut the property. And the one that abuts that's closest to the shoreline had one done last year because they went into a addition on their property. So I'm not sure if that might be of any help to anybody at this point or not.
I believe Councillor Fellner is referring to the distance between the blasting area and the lot line. 3 feet is on the left side of our sketch, whatever that is. And I guess the question again is, do you have a current certified survey of that lot line or not?
Not in my possession. The neighbor would, though.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, Ann. Mayor, I just wanted to confirm that there is no valid survey in his possession this time. Thank you.
But let me just ask the question of Director Stone. If the neighbor has a valid survey that marks the lot line, does that suffice?
No, I believe what Councillor Fellner is requesting is that it be identified, like they identify where the lot line is, because of the proximity of the proposed blasting in relation to that property line. So the surveyor would go out and flag it, basically, put stakes down, and that way we would know that the blasting is occurring on the right side of the property line.
Correct. But so that could be pinning it. It doesn't necessarily involve a full survey.
No, that's right.
Okay,
So
Yeah,
that would make it easier for the proponent, because the surveyor would just they would be able to identify the existing pins that are there, and just then run stakes up the lot line just to make sure that everybody's on the right side of the line.
And no, I didn't, I didn't think that a full survey was required, just the identification of the line.
Yeah.
Mr. Michael, did you have a question?
No, I guess planning could direct me on who to contact to look after that.
Yeah, we have a motion on the table with a motion and a mover and a seconder, and the last line of the motion now reads, subject to the conditions as outlined in staff report DPS-PL 2020-139, and subject to the lot lines being confirmed by an Ontario land surveyor. A copy attached as Schedule A to this resolution. So, do we need a motion and a seconder for that amendment?
So probably after listening to some discussion for clarification, that last part that you added, could you just say that again for me for a moment?
And subject to the lot lines being confirmed by an Ontario land surveyor.
So really subject to the lot lines being identified on the ground by an OLS. So we don't want them just to confirm them, we want them to mark them, basically.
Lot lines being marked by an Ontario land surveyor? Okay. Okay, so now it says being marked by an Ontario land surveyor, and I'll call a vote. All in favor of passing? Thank you, and that's carried. So, Mr. Michael, thank you for coming. I suggest you work with Director Stone to figure out what needs to be done to comply with that. But good luck with your building.
Okay, thanks. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Steve, you're still here on the hot seat. So we have an update on the official review project, and in your addendum you have several more comments that are part of the public consultation that will be reviewed by Skelton Brunwell. Steve, do you want to take us through the update?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much to the rest of council. What we wanted to do was just to give council an update and especially provide them with comments received from the public. So that's why there's a fair bit, as you see, will be attached to the report. The good thing is that we're on budget at this point. We are behind, and I took liberty to sort of ask the consultant last week to ensure that there was additional virtual time with the steering committee. So they've since reached out to the steering committee to hold a meeting with them next week, either Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, for a couple hours to make sure the committee has an opportunity to scope the issues further for the project team. And then I asked the consultants to prepare a draft of that report for early January to allow, again, the steering committee to read their recommendations and provide further comments. And we're hoping that that leads to a report to for council's consideration on February 1st that identifies the issues scoped as agreed to, I guess, by the steering committee and the project team. Thank you.
Thank you. We have comments. Councillor Fellner, you have a question for Director Stone?
Oh, sorry, Mayor, I forgot to take my little hand down.
Okay, Councillor Osborne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Steve, does this update include all comments received, or is this just comments that have been received recently? Because I noticed some are missing.
Well, we do our best to include them all. I know that there has been some disconnect with the SharePoint submissions. And every time we get wind that there may be a comment or several missing, I have to go do a bit of a hunt and ask Marissa to update things. So that's why you see the addenda package. There were several that I was able to discover that weren't shared. And so what I did is I had them Marissa, again, share them on their SharePoint, but I also include them as hard copies at the back of this report as well as the addendum report. So if you hear that that some comments were submitted, but they haven't been uploaded to the SharePoint, let me know and I'll track them down again.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, I'm looking here at the schedule where you in H, under 3H, final public meeting, end of March, early April in the schedule.
Right. Yes.
It's been suggested that due to COVID, by March, we're probably still virtual. And B, the majority of the seasonal residents are not here then. And the idea being, why wouldn't we have this final public meeting shifted to summer? A date in the summertime when there's full, and possibly I say, an in-person meeting with proper distancing, if at all possible by then.
Yeah, I think what you'll see come February 1st is a revision to that timeline, because I know the consultants were being very aggressive, and I listening to some members of the steering committee, we decided to step back from that aggressive timelines, because to be fair with the consultants, they realized they were behind by maybe 4 weeks, and they were trying to capture up some of the lost time.
Well, that's fine. I too found it very aggressive, and I guess we'll leave it up to you to indicate that the lack of maybe urgency to the consultant.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I do want to point out, who knows what we're going to be in terms of social distancing, but the lake associations have had broader participation from seasonal members from all over the world because of COVID. So attendance is way up on the Zoom consultations. So it's 6 of one, half a dozen of another. But let's see what they come back with in February with the schedule. Any other comments? Thank you, Steve. And I can see in my inbox that the meeting request has just come in, beeping from Marissa. Okay, we have, as per the recommendation of staff report number DPS-PL 2020-130, regulations for cannabis manufacturing and processing facilities, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby direct staff to initiate an amendment to the zoning bylaw as per Schedule A of the report and schedule the required public meeting for the new year. Could I have a motion from Councillor Cole?
Also move.
Thank you, and seconded by Rod Osborne.
Second.
Thank you, and I'll just remind you that this is reflecting our comments from the last meeting to make odor control for everybody making anything out of cannabis. So Steve, do you want to review it?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, to rest of council. This was really the draft bylaw that you see in the addendum, or sorry, the appendix is a reflection on Councillor Fellner's request to ensure odor control was the only type of facility that could operate in Seguin. And what we did is, you'll see also in the report, we identified potential areas that could have manufacturing of cannabis products throughout the municipality. And so that being said, the next step would be to initiate an amendment. We don't anticipate that happening till later on in February, just because of the workload of council. So thank you.
Any questions? No questions? So all in favor of letting planning move to the next stage? Thank you. That's carried. And the next one on the draft citing, I have a motion that as per the recommendation of staff report DPS-PL 2020-124, Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the telecommunication tower and antenna system siting and consultation protocol in the Township of Seguin attached as Schedule A. And you will recall that this was deferred until today Steve, I'll ask you to review the corrections you've made to it, but it reflects council's comments from last meeting.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. To rest of council, as council recall, my report referred to the notification radius to being 400 meters from the property line. Staff was asked to revisit that, and we did. And so we gave you an example on Schedule A that shows what was actually in the protocol, which was a 400 meter from the base of the installation that's proposed in Humphrey. And so as you can see, the red ring on that schedule would be what would be normally required by Industry Canada. The 400 meter radius is what is somewhat reflective of what council wants with commercial industrial installations being proposed in and around the lakes. So what we did is we demonstrated that you will have an improved radius for consultation, and that reflects, as I said, reflects what council had been discussing at its last meeting. So for the most part, there was just minor changes that we made to the protocol. We changed the date on the title page, and we clarified the meaning of the word distance. And so based on that, if council approves this, we'll now proceed on this consultation protocol for any new towers. Thank you.
Councillor Moffat.
Yes, one of the items that I had a chance to speak to Steve with earlier today, which is noted on page 325, is the additional public meeting information meetings, sort of allowing council to, ask for a little bit more with respect to that. So it's just a additional belt and suspender that we can utilize as part of siting protocol, so we don't have, so that we can ensure that we get to as many people as possible based on what we as council feel is the most appropriate steps forward. So I appreciate the fact that that's been added.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor of adopting this? All in favor, thank you, carries. Okay, so we're moving on to item 9, shore road allowances. Council will now consider the following shore road allowance applications. Shore road allowance application number RAS 2019-0012-F for Straub on Georgian Bay, bylaw number 2020-115, and shore road allowance application number RAS 2020-003-H for Chen, Whitefish Lake, and Broad River, bylaw number 2020-118. Have there been any written objections received related to these applications?
No written objections have been received.
Thank you. So I have a motion here that bylaw number 2020-115, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original road shore allowance, application number RAS-2019-0012-F for Straub is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
Yes, Mayor, I so move your motion.
And seconded by Gail Vincent?
I second that.
All in favor of approving this short, we have a question from Councillor Osborne.
Just a comment, Mayor. Just wanted to bring to council's attention that the Chen property, 29 Kelly Bay Drive, that's the property where Steve Stone was able to have that boathouse that was sinking removed. And I guess now they want to buy that shore road allowance. So thanks again to Steve.
Okay, thank you. We're currently considering the Straub application. So all in favor of it? Thank you, and that's carried. Now we'll move on to the Chen application, that bylaw number 2020-118, being a bylaw to close, stop up, and sell a portion of the original shore road allowance, application number RAS 2020-0003-H for Chen is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So moved.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor of approving this short rollout? Thank you, and that's carried. We have a resolution here that was deferred last meeting, and it's about Park to Park, and I'm going to ask Jason, Craig, which one of you is going to tell us this Park to Park tale?
Mr. Jeffrey.
Mr. Jeffrey is going to speak to the Park to Park trail.
Actually, there's a memo in your package.
Yep.
It's a one-page, pretty straightforward. And I would say if you have any questions, I'll answer them on that memo because I prepared the memo for council. Probably the easiest way to do that.
Okay, and you'll note in the memo, we had a meeting, and I think the summary is that we were not comfortable handling cash over to Park, and we're continuing to work with them on governance, but that we would provide some work materials in kind to help make the trail safe for the winter, but we would manage it.
Correct. And if council goes with the recommendation from staff, you have a motion on the table that was for a donation in the amount of $20,000 that was allocated in the 2020 donation fund. So if you went with the recommendation of staff, you would withdraw that one, and we would have a new motion that would authorize donation in kind to a maximum amount of that $20,000 for works on the Park Trail within the boundaries of Seguin.
Okay. And we have a couple questions here. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand the original ask, or the last ask we had from Park to Park was that they wanted to designate any sum of money we were giving them towards staff. In order to enhance their operations, they wanted to put that money towards staff. Now, this in-kind contribution through material and labor kind of contradicts their ask. Are they aware of that?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship, members of council. Councillor Osborne, we certainly acknowledge and recognize that was their request. In fairness, we will work with Park to Park, but we have some questions around governance and their structure before we started handing over, frankly, cash for staffing, especially when you consider the current condition of the trail. Your Director of Public Works spent some time reviewing the trail itself for all of us and has uncovered some fairly significant improvements just to bring the trail up to a level of safety that we feel confident with. So it is our recommendation at this point that we invest in the trail system, infrastructure improvement, maintenance within Seguin Township, while your administration works with Park to Park on a governance structure and some of the logistics in the background before we consider any further requests for funding for staffing.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Moffat, you have a question?
Yeah, it just, one of the things that were raised was the ownership of the trail, and we had some concerns in our meeting in terms of doing the work, and I just want to make sure that as part of this has been vetted out so that whatever work we end up doing, and there's Mr. Inwood, we end up doing it under Park to Park or in cooperation with or whatever it may be, and I'm sure that's going to be taken care of, but I just wanted to hear what maybe a plan is with respect to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, Councillor Moffat, our due diligence is well underway to ensure that we are working within the appropriate parameters. It is a fairly complex set of properties that the trail does pass through, but you can be assured that we'll be doing our due diligence and only working where appropriate.
Okay. So if we go back to what the clerk suggested, we have the deferred motion, which is to allocate $20,000 cash to Park to Park. And it was originally moved by Gail Finson and seconded by Art Cole. What I'm hearing we should do is withdraw this request, and you have another motion that would talk to gift in kind.
Correct. If the mover wishes to withdraw it, they could do that.
Okay, so Gail and Councillor Coles, I'm
Yes.
asking if you would withdraw this motion.
Yes,
that we made.
Yes, we
Yes.
will.
Okay, so what do I do?
Just withdraw the date, please, and here it is.
Okay, so now we have a new motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve a donation in kind to Park Trail Association, Inc., and the value of which shall not exceed $20,000, which is to be funded, from the 2020 budget allocation for the donation to Park Trail Association, Incorporated. And that council does hereby direct staff to work with the Park Trail Association to determine the exact in-kind donation, subject to the materials and/or works being provided in the geographic area of the Township of Seguin. So could I call on Councillor Finson to move this one?
I so move.
And a seconder again from Councillor Cole.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of this? Thank you. Okay. Oh, this is concerning the OGRA, Good Roads, meeting. And so I'm interested in knowing who would like to attend the virtual conference, which runs from February 22nd to February 25th. I see Councillor Finson, Councillor Cole. Anybody else? Councillor Finson, Councillor Cole, oh, Councillor Fellner. And I will attend. And I'm quite sure other staff. They come out of a different budget, but that's something you'll be looking at. So the motion is that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize the following members of Council to be registered for the 2021 Ontario Good Roads Association virtual conference being held February 22nd to February 25, 2021. The following councillors are Councillor Finson, Councillor Fellner, Councillor Cole, and Mayor McDermott. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
Second.
You, all in favor? Thank you. This is the appointment of Councillor Fellner to the Committee of Adjustment meeting. It gets done every year, I believe. Is that why we're doing it? So that Councillor of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby appoint Councillor Terry Fellner as the council representative on the Township of Seguin Committee of Adjustment for 2021. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Felder, for continuing to serve. We move to, really, I think this is mainly for information, but I will ask Michelle to speak to this. This is ICIP Resilience Infrastructure funding. And you can see the letter that outlines it. Michelle, do you want to tell people what it's about?
Sure. This is the COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Program. Our allocation is $100,000. The application has to be into the province by December 21st. Funds have to be spent by December 31st, 2021, unless you're a remote community, which Seguin has been determined to be a remote community. So we have until December 31st, 2022 to spend these funds. As it stands right now, Dominique and I have been working on an application to apply these funds to the arena floor project. So,
Can you put dressing rooms in there with the floor?
we probably could. We do have to look at what we have in the budget, and Dominique has been working on the plan that we had to try to make this happen. So.
Okay, I look at COVID and distancing. It's pretty hard to distance in our dressing room.
Yes, it is. I mean, the floor is the more critical issue. So we're having a look at the whole project and seeing how we can fit it within the budget.
Okay. Councillor Fellner, you have a question?
Yeah, I just saw with interest that the one thing that would qualify as well would be parks, trails, footbridges, bike lanes, and multi-use paths.
Mm-hmm.
The total allocation is $100,000 for us.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And our biggest issue right now is we have a December 21st deadline to get this in, and it's a fairly big application. So.
And you've done some of the work already on the marina.
Yes.
Councillor Moffat.
Well, I would support Councillor Fellner's comments after attending the Ontario Bike Conference. We lack, as we've just discussed, the park-to-park trail. We lack bicycle paths. We lack infrastructure on our roads for bicycles. And I think there's an opportunity to do smaller projects. And the arena is not going to give us a social distancing, which this is really, looking to get people outside and doing things. So I would support us looking at a few other avenues to spend this money in the township.
I do have to say we can only apply for one project. So not a number of projects, it's one project. So.
Councillor Osborne, you have a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Michelle, I see this as under the flag of COVID. But at the same time, it's pretty open in terms of the infrastructure.
Yes.
So that's what I don't understand. What's COVID got to do with measures like bike paths or trail footbridges?
Really, this is called the COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure, and I think it's just a way of getting some infrastructure dollars out there and spent in the province.
Okay, is this unrelated to the 600,000 we received?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, it's unrelated. All right, thank you.
Councillor Fellner, last comment.
Yeah. So last comment. So Michelle, if we applied the 100,000 to the arena, and I mean that's a good cause too, obviously. Would that 100,000 be enough to facilitate the entire project?
No, the entire region. Sorry, I got some real feedback there. The entire arena project, including the dressing rooms, was $1.5 million.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So that would be just sort of a drop in the bucket. Right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I hand the decision back to staff to get an application in for the deadline? But I think it's up to staff to pick the ultimate, what can we do by December 21st? Is that acceptable to you? Okay. Thank you for bringing it forward, Michelle, and good luck with the application. I know how complicated they are. The next item is we have resolutions from Carling, Magnatowan, Perry Sound, or no, not Perry Sound, Madcar, about objecting to the EMS levy. And you will recall that Councillor Osborne brought it back from the EMS meeting that there was going to be an additional levy, and we allocated some of our $600,000 to pay that. I did attend a heads meeting where this was discussed, and I personally think we, Seguin, have made the right decision. You either want EMS or you don't want EMS, and we don't really have any control over the allocation of the cost, and we've already allocated money to it. So these are really for information. They're asking us to withdraw our money, and I personally do not think that's a good move. Councillor Osborne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I have heard nothing further since the withdrawal of many of these townships from the funding request. As I understand it, we've committed to our request. And I've heard nothing further from the EMS director on the status of other funding. I don't know what he's planning on doing, but some of these townships indicate that they should be seeking the funding from the province, from the Ministry of Health. And that funding has already been addressed by the director. And I want this council to be clear that this shortfall is in addition to the funding for COVID that was addressed by Ministry of Health. It's in addition. So these municipalities are taken out of context. They all receive money for COVID, and they all need to step up to the plate. It doesn't affect their normal budgeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner, you have your hand up?
Well, actually, I hadn't taken it down, but I will agree with you, Mayor. I think that our attitude should be to stay in this thing.
Yeah, we need EMS. It's a vital
Exactly.
service. Okay, so that was for information. We move on to bylaws.
Item F is a
Oh, I'm sorry, F, scheduling of the pool presentation. Sorry, that was the addendum. So, Jason, do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the pool committee, steering committee in consultation with the architects and Chair Donald Sanderson are looking to get out in front of all of the councils, a number of the West Perry Sound district. A number of them have received presentations already. It appears as though there's a possibility that we can schedule something for the 16th, the evening of the 16th, where Chair Sanderson can come and present to council status update and some recommendations for council consideration regarding the pool and wellness center.
And it would be by Zoom.
Absolutely, it would be
it would be like this.
It would be a virtual meeting, but we would love the opportunity to present to council and get some recommendations put in front of council to move to take next steps if council sees fit.
So I believe Donna did a bit of a survey to see if people were available. Councillor Cole? Oh, you're muted.
What time in the evening was it? Is
It was
it?
originally set for 4:30, I believe.
Yeah, I'm unable to attend if it's that early. If it's later in the evening, I can attend.
Okay. Councillor Moffat?
I just want to make sure, will we have a resolution with regards to that, or are we having information to take away to be able to discuss?
Thank you, Councillor Moffat. There will be a resolution, and you'll get some information packages sent in advance of the meetings for consideration. So you will have a chance to review the details, but there will certainly be resolutions before council to pass that evening.
And will the likely resolution be we will support the wellness center? Is that the idea?
That is the intent. That is the intent, yes.
And the two councils that have had the presentation have passed those.
McDougall and
Whitestone, I believe.
Yeah. And in fairness, I believe one of the municipalities is going this evening. There's a couple presentations this week, a couple next week as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Osborne.
Will that resolution, Mayor, include a request for money, for a commitment of money?
The wording that I have seen is that in anticipation of the federal funding coming, the township would agree to their portion. So there's still an if because we haven't heard federally.
So this would be like a request for funding subject to upper tier government participation and they've got no word on that whatsoever, as I'm aware. Why would
correct. They've heard from the
funding
province.
request before they know? Because I looked at the Zoom meeting, the last pool committee, and the comment was, unless they had the 70% funding from upper tier governments, the project would probably not go ahead. So there's a big if out there, and I'm thinking it's a little premature to start asking for funding commitments from municipalities until they've got some sort of decision from upper tier governments as to any potential funding whatsoever. Just my thought.
Yeah.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. I don't want to get ahead of myself. In fairness I'm still working my way through understanding the complexities behind what has taken, my understanding, many, many years to get to where we are today. There is an outstanding application with the federal government, which once that announcement is made, if hopefully favorably, then the recommendations that will be before council will all be hinging on federal approval. And in fairness, I'm pretty sure the feds would like to know that they have the full support of all of our municipalities involved before they issue any sort of grant funding. So one of the reasons we're trying to squeeze this in before the new year is to be able to demonstrate that the 7 municipalities that are contributors are all aligned and ready to go and ready to make the commitments to foresee that project or to see that project come to fruition.
A lot of it is a communication advantage to be able to say that we're all together and supportive. The province has been very supportive and have sent a couple of times their recommendations to the federal government. So we're waiting, but it is a communications challenge. In addition to Donald Sanderson, I believe that at the special meeting, there would be the architects and the consultants will also be on the line for you to ask questions of. So I guess the question becomes, with the absence of Councillor Coles, what time could you make it that evening? Because I'd like to have everybody there.
Yeah, certainly anything after 6. I have an appointment in Toronto in the afternoon that I have to be able to get back for.
It was back a week or so ago. Just to check, what are people available on the 17th at 4:30?
Oh.
I am.
Mayor, can I recommend that we take this offline and have a doodle pool sent out so that we can have this
We've
addressed
already
that way?
done that, Councillor Moffat.
A
We've
doodle
done it
pool?
once.
No. We
Not
had
a doodle
an
pool.
email sent
Okay.
that said the 16th.
That's because they doodle pool.
Okay. Well, we also have a whole other piece, which is the consultants and Donald Sanderson's availability.
I'm good in the 17th.
Okay. Can I leave it with you, Jason, to see? I'm comfortable moving it later on the 16th.
Yeah,
and
either
we have
or.
already canvassed all of the councillors.
If I can, Your Worship, my understanding of most presentations in the other municipalities are being scheduled 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. So if that is palatable for council on the 16th, I can follow up with an individual email to each of you to make sure. But I think we would like to confirm as soon as possible, not only for the committee and the consultants and the engineers, but also to notify the public of a special meeting of council. We want to make sure everybody's had an opportunity to schedule their own time to be able to participate and watch online with the virtual meeting as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it would be ideal if all of us could be there, so let's see if we can do that.
Do we know how long the meeting is, Mayor? Couple of 3 hours? What do we?
Google's went kind of an hour and a half.
Yeah, we're, the committee is budgeting about an hour and a half in the event that there is some good debate and some good discussion. I watched the McDougall one, and in fairness, the presentation was 25 minutes or so, and only a few minutes of questions from McDougall, so they were in and out in 30. But in fairness, you know, we're a very significant contributor, and I would expect that there'd be lots of good questions from council to ensure you're fully informed before those decisions are made.
Okay, thank you.
So are we going to set a time tonight or not?
Well, no, I think Mr. Inwood's going to take it to see if he can get Donald Sanderson and the consultants to move it back to 6 or 6:30 on the 16th, but he'll have to communicate with us after he talks to them.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so this is a bylaw about the interim tax levy. So this is a motion that bylaw number 2020-120 being a bylaw to provide for a 2021 interim tax levy, to provide for the payment of taxes, and to provide for penalty and interest of 1.25% per month is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Simpson? Thank you.
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Cole.
I'll second that.
And you'll recall that we do this similar every year. It's really to authorize the early in the new year tax levy to go out. All in favor? Thank you. Carrie? Oh. Right. And so you saw in the addendum that item 11B has been basically withdrawn. There is no action required by council. And the LPAT has ruled on a settlement with North Lake Joe. Councillor Osborne.
Mayor, was there not on that file a request to Seguin concerning a limitation on height as part of the minutes of settlement? There was something that I think council had to comment on or rule on or something? No?
I'll ask the clerk to reply to you.
So in reference, there is no action required of Seguin Township in the LPAT order, or in the LPAT decision, and specifically the order, which in the package, if you look at the decision, it's item number 17, speaks to the order.
Yes.
And in this instance, LPAT has not directed the township to do anything. LPAT actually implemented the decision with the order. So basically, LPAT amended Seguin's bylaw. We are no longer required to do anything. The question or concern that came out of the association, who was one of the party participants in the appeal, is really between that association and LPAT. It's not related to Seguin whatsoever. So the minutes of settlement that were referred to, you know, that's really not part of this whole issue that was removed tonight.
So the Craig, just to be clear here, so the order from LPAT actually amends our to include our following special zone requirement maximum height, and they're doing that with the order.
Right. That order actually, the key wording there is the tribunal orders that the appeal against bylaw number 2020-056 of the Township of Seguin is allowed in part, and bylaw number 2020-056 is amended to include. So this actually says it's amended, so LPAT made that order and amended it themselves, as opposed to saying, you know, when the township is directed to implement an amendment.
They've done it for us.
That's right.
Thank
And
you.
that comes from Mr. Longo. So last week when the correspondence was received from the Lake Association, the CAO had us contact Mr. Longo to verify what he was recommending and what had taken place. And so Leo did get back to us and said no action is required, that LPAT actually implemented the decision.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Now we have a C from the addendum. This is from the addendum. This is 11C. We have a bylaw number 2020-125, being a bylaw to write off taxes on properties in the Township of Seguin. Is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Moffat?
I so move, Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Collins.
I second that, Mayor.
All in favor? I believe both of them are demolitions. Now we have, again, from the addendum, Councillor Moffat, Ontario Bike Summit report, for your information, I believe. Item 12A on the addendum.
Yes, but I'll speak to it in my council report, Mayor.
Okay.
But it is just for basically a summary of the conference, but I'll speak to it in my council report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll go to Chief Administrative Officer's report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, quick updates. Of course, with every month that passes by, or every week that passes by, and I've reached my 1 month mark on the job now, you know, I continue to build those relationships and get to know everybody throughout the community. Virtually attended the Westbury Sound CAO's meeting, where we worked to present and welcome our new Economic Development Officer, who started today. I'll have a meeting with him later this week, so excited to get to meet him. I must thank all of council for taking some time out of your busy schedules to either meet with me or take a tour of your wards. With the exception of some time with the mayor, I have spent a couple of hours with everybody, and I'm very appreciative and quite frankly very overwhelmed with how much knowledge each of you have within your wards. It amazes me how many people you are able to reference just by driving by their home, and quite frankly, their businesses and their involvement in the community, and it was a very pleasurable experience, and I thank council for that. In addition to spending some time with council, of course, I've had the opportunity to meet a number of business owners and spend some time with them, and that continues and will continue for many months to come. Also had a great time spent with some of your staff, some of your senior staff. Your Director of Community Services took me on a tour of all of our facilities, and I was able to sort of get in behind the closed doors of some of the newer facilities, some of the older facilities, and really get to see the nuts and bolts and how everything works. And the same can be said, your Director of Public Works took me on a road tour where I'm pretty sure we covered 80+% of the municipal road network, and it was quite informative. Also had the opportunity to meet with some folks from CNIB, which I found to be very, very informative, and what a fantastic community partner to have here in the community. And last week I had a chance to spend some time with Oscar from KPMG. Clearly, just before I started here, council received the service delivery review report from KPMG, and I've had the opportunity to sink my teeth deep into it and spend a bit of time with Oscar, sort of unpacking and understanding his methodologies and some of his recommendations in detail. So that was a good time spent with Oscar, and some good information for me. Since the submission of this report, just wanted to provide a couple of broadband updates if I can. Lakeland Energy, who owns formerly Core Broadband, I'll be working with them to do some infrastructure replacement up in Orville at our public works site up there. So we'll be spending some time working with them to ensure that we can get their infrastructure upgrades in place. And additionally, town staff in partnership with the West Perry Sound Smart Community Network will be issuing a request for proposal for expanded broadband connectivity in the Highway 518 and Orville community. That work will be coming out very, very soon. In fact, I believe later this week we're targeting release of the RFP. And of course, we'll report back to council when we have some meaningful results and some meaningful direction to make recommendations to council. With that, Your Worship, that is my report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our Chief Administrative Officer? You've been busy.
A little bit.
And one of the goals of the RFP too is to meet the deadlines in January and February for the federal and provincial funding for the people that might respond to the RFP. So that's part of the timing. So, councillor report. I forget who started first last time, but Gail, how about you go first? Ward 6 first.
I don't have a lot to say. I didn't have a lot of meetings. I had an RCAC meeting. They're still interested in having the sidewalks plowed, so we had a little discussion about that. I've spoken to Peter and I've sent the staff reports on to the members of RCAC so they could have a look at what we received at council. Maybe they could get a better understanding of why the sidewalks aren't being plowed. I've had a few traffic issues, which again, I had to speak with Peter to help me out. Somebody was complaining about speeding and big trucks and tearing up the roads and stuff. So we dealt with that. But other than that, just a few community phone calls. One of the lady on the, Highway 632 that was having the problems with water is very happy. So I just want to say thank you to Peter. Thank you to MTO. Thank you to Fowler. Like, really a job well done. Everybody is, I haven't spoken to her in the last week or so because I was in Toronto, but very happy. It's been reported to me that things are good. So overall, a good couple of weeks, and that's all I have. Thanks.
Good. Councillor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On the 4th, I had a telephone conversation with DSAB new CAO, Tammy, and we got to know each other pretty good. She's got some very good ideas. She's proactive. I can see that there's going to be a lot of changes coming forth. So I was quite pleased with her and meeting her and talking to her. And I have a DSAB meeting on the 10th. And there will be the final meeting for 2020, and I'm sure that'll be the time that we vote on approving the budget for the budget, the 2021 budget for DSAB. Okay, and there'll be zero increase in our levy.
Thank you. Good news. Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, I think since the last meeting, I had a committee of adjustment meeting. Went fairly well, I think. And I actually have another one this week. It's a little early this month to get things in before the end of the year, I believe. Haven't really had any other meetings, and things have been relatively quiet in my part of the world, so that's about all I've been up to.
Okay. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. The west bay of Turtle Lake is now 90% frozen over. That's all I have to report. Thank you.
Okay. Skaters will be happy. Councillor Cole.
Yeah, a few meetings. As you know, recently we lowered speed limits on some of our roads, James Bay Junction being one. And of course, you can never make everybody happy. People are complaining that the speed limit is too low. not the best way to start the week, but that was this week. Belvedere, I've had 2 meetings. We had a finance committee meeting and a full board meeting at Belvedere. And I have some very good news. Belvedere will be reducing our levy budget by 10% per municipality this year, which means about a 50,000 plus saving for Seguin. So that's good news.
Great.
So if you think of ways to spend that, I already have. So. Attended a regional broadband meeting, one that the mayor chairs, which was very informative, and that everybody seems to be working well together to improve our internet capacity and capabilities here. And a West Prairie Sound Health Center update as well. Had a meeting with the North Seguin property owners as well. So it's been a pretty busy week.
Thank you. And Councillor Moffat.
Yeah, I guess I would add to Councillor Cole's. My last 3 weeks have been extremely busy. Several museum meetings. I've been spearheading the Trestle Brewery partnership with the museum, working with 5 other board members at the museum in order to get that resolved. As mentioned, we had the Park to Park subcommittee meeting to talk about those issues. Not that it was council related, but I attended the FOCA fall seminar on the 21st of November. I've attended the Parry Sound Active Transportation Committee meeting. I've attended 2 Muskoka Watershed Council meetings. Last week was the Ontario Bike Summit, which was 3 days. I wasn't able to attend all the sessions because I was actually teaching for 2 of the sessions in the morning. I will be reviewing the sessions once they become available. But that was an amazing conference. I would be honest, I did not have high expectations to do an online conference, but they had short snippets of an hour-ish, 45 minutes thereabouts of presentations, of which you had about 6 speakers. So it made for a pretty quick pace of things. So that was really, really good. As mentioned, included in the council package is my information on the bike summit. I will be honest, I think that we lack, and we should be doing more for trails, bikes, but I think that we do not have data. We've recently acquired counters and speed signs. You can get the same for bicycles, whereby we should be looking at getting data in order to make informed decisions with regards to roads, so that we know how many people are on our roads with bikes, so that we can, either it's an MTO road or it's a municipal road, that we can look and see what we can do going forward. Right now, we have no data to be able to, determine and assess where we put our planning. The other aspect of the conference that was really good, there is a number of, as we saw tonight, grants available, but also active transportation plans. What are we doing with regards? We've got the Rose Point Trail, we've got the Seguin Trail, we've got the Humphrey Trail, we've got these 3 trails. What are we doing to try to combine those, connect those and move things forward? And that's all part of an active transportation plan that I think that we should be focusing on. And again, going back to the idea of getting people out and active and minds going forward. There's one item separate from that. There's one item that I would like to raise. We have in our delegations 10 minutes, 1 person. And I think that when we were historically in council chambers, there was numerous times where people came 2 or 3 and spoke. We have that policy on our website with regards to 1 person, 10 minutes. And I think I spoke to Craig about this earlier. I have not spoken to Jason about it, but certainly I think there's an opportunity that we can maybe delete that 1 person. We give the delegations the 10 minutes and they can allocate their time. And if there's 2 speakers or 3 speakers, it is what it is, but we stick to our time and not really, force a single person. So I'm hopeful that we would be able to make that change, or at least come back from a staff report with respect to that matter. Just touching back on the Ontario Bike Conference, I know that I've spoken to Jason about it. I really firmly believe that planning staff operations staff and community services staff should be attending that conference. I'm not sure when it's going to be in 2021, but there's a number of municipal staff that go to this, and there's a lot of opportunity for those. It's no different than the roads conference. It's no different than Roma. So there's a lot of opportunity for sharing and learning. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I think a couple of your suggestions we'll hand off to staff to come back with recommendations on those.
Thank you. Looks like Gail may have she's pausing.
Oh, okay, Gail?
I just have a comment to you, Daryl. I received a folder from the Historical Society of all people on trails and roads, and it's maps of Seguin. So I wondered if you would be interested. It was years ago, 2006 maybe. They were looking at adjoining the trails and how it would be possible. And when I looked at it, I thought of you, and I thought maybe something could be revived out of that folder. So I've kept it in thoughts that you might be interested in looking at it. And it was to do with Robert and biking, and so that, and it just happened to come to me that same day. So I have that information. It may not be any good, but there might be something in there that's useful. So I just thought awesome. So we'll go over that maybe.
Thank you.
Gail, could you also make sure that Jason gets a copy of it? Sure. Because we are starting to work kind of behind the scenes on the Robert Carroll Trail and looking at where there are right-of-ways already. So
it might be useful. It might be. I'll bring it in and give it to him, and Daryl and I can talk.
A copy can be made, because we need to know where, and I called, some of the older people or previous counselors and said, what did you guys do about this trail and that trail, and got all kinds of information. So maybe some of it's in that file folder. So
and it's all on Seguin letterhead. Like it was done in conjunction with a counselor or with Seguin, because it's got the Seguin letterhead and all the maps are out there, the GIS maps and everything. So I'll give it to you guys and we'll work with it. Anyway, I wanted to say that to Daryl because I know you'd be interested.
Okay. Well, and I look at my sheet since November 16th, and there have been a lot of more meetings, starting, I guess, with the internal park-to-park meeting. Then on November 26th, the heads of council met, and it's interesting, again, Zoom has enabled all of them to attend all of the meetings, which they never did in person, so that's good. Then on November 27th, I attended the virtual Canada's Remote and Rural Broadband Conference, which was very informative. The minutes of it and some of the attachments will be in your next agenda package. I missed this meeting for the correspondence, but there's some very interesting information. November 30th was the biannual meeting of the heads of council being invited to the West Parry Sound Hospital Board meeting at night, and it focused exclusively on COVID in our community. It was very interesting. While numbers are going up, we're still one of the few areas that is considered green, with less issues. But we are all being asked to continue the hand washing, the masking. The hospital is not operating the way it normally does. It's a very different place to arrive at. And something that was interesting to me is the chief medical staff commented on how for years we've been sending patients north and south for specialists and that kind of thing. And now those southern hospitals are going to start depending on us to take their overflow. And that is something we have to be prepared for in the COVID situation. It's our turn to reciprocate. So it's very interesting. December 1st, I participated in a webinar with Roma on what they call their Municipal Primer and Connectivity Roadmap, which are two tools that Roma has produced for broadband, and they're outstanding. And again, their links, I think their links are on the Roma website, but their links will also be in your next agenda package. And they're well worth a look because it's what the township can do to get ready for broadband. And there's some important steps there. Same on December 1st, I participated in the South Muskoka YMCA Community Action Roundtable, which focuses on trying to get people in the area ready to get back to work. And one of the issues was transportation in and around our region. So Gail and I are going to be participating with their representatives to see what we can do, not only to get seniors transportation, but transportation for people that are ready to work but can't get to work. And so it's a region-wide initiative. Then on the December 3rd was the regional broadband meeting, which is going well. We had a special presentation on Starlink, the low Earth orbit satellite as a broadband solution. And then this afternoon, I participated in the second meeting of women mayors of Ontario, but this time it was across Canada. It was organized by the Lieutenant Governor Elizabeth Dowdeswell to mark the 50th anniversary of the Royal Commission and the Status of Women. And we had some pretty hard hitters, Monique Bégin, who was the secretary to that Royal Commission, Roberta Jameson, Lisa Laflamme. It was a very impressive panel, and it will be on YouTube, which I will share. And the only other little tiny piece of news, but I think it's good news for all of us, is the OPP local detachment in Parry Sound has now appointed Jeremy McDonald as the detachment commander. It was filled by an interim person up until last week. And so Jeremy is a Parry Sound person and successful in his candidacy. And that's it for me.
Mayor, I just have a question, just in terms of the transportation. One of the things that we've looked at, or at least I've considered in terms of ICECAP, is some sort of on-demand Uber type system that Jason would be familiar with in Innisfil. Instead of having a consistent, service, you've got a call in. So hopefully that is something that's part of that discussion, and it'd be interesting to see how that could link in with our ICECAP and our greenhouse gas emission work that we're doing. So I'd like to see an update as things develop on that.
Well, we can, and we'll ask Jason to participate. I did look into it with his mayor after they presented at Good Roads last year. And one of the big differences is our distances.
Yes, I know.
Very unaffordable.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at all options, but it's very different. Jason, do you want to talk to it?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll perhaps save my comments on the Uber model for discussion at a later point in time, but I don't mind sharing with Council that even just yesterday, your Director of Public Works had a conversation with me about some transportation opportunities that he's been working in the background. So I think, it's all on our minds, and we're working, we're exploring all avenues on how, when, where, and what we can do to be able to afford some form of meaningful transportation within the community.
I think we all know that it's a priority. So I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee agendas and minutes and the correspondence as presented on the agenda and the addendum for the December 7th, 2020 meeting of Council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Cole?
Also move.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
Second.
All in favor? Receiving. You. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 7:18 p.m. in order to address matters pertaining to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposal of land by the municipality or local board, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and labor relations or employee negotiations. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner? Okay, thank you, Terry. And seconded by Councillor Collins.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor of moving into close? Thank you. So you do your technical, yeah, we just have to take a minute for Craig to get us off live here.
Mayor,
Yep.
as opposed to taking a minute, can we take 5? It's been almost 3 hours.
Okay.